least. Find me close to thee. Find me at the feet of Jesus.
Hello, church. Now it's time for praise and prayer requests. So I have Mario here taking that side. Now we'll go ahead and take this side. And this time, where you just let us know, your praises throughout the rest of the week that's happened so far, and kind of prayer requests too, the difficulties kind of going through.
I'm Jocelyn. Please pray for our friend Ludy. She had a stroke and she's still in the ICU at Fairfax Hospital. Thank you.
Good morning. The other day I was asking the church to pray because we have the decision to see we was going to Florida in a year or not. Okay, we decided to stay. So we're not moving. So that's an answer, prayer answer. And another is I prayed the Lord because Sabrina, the other day she had those, whatever they call those blood that they're having in the bed. She became with two, like 2-3 weeks ago. So I get panicked because I don't have that thing and whatever. And we took her to the doctor. They've been making tests, but everything is being clear. So it's no cancer. They was thinking that I was tuberculosis. It's not tuberculosis. The first time they take 10 tubes of blood. The other day they take 5 more. They do X-ray injection. They do a lot of tests, but everything is being clear. So praise the Lord. Amen.
Hi, church. I just want to praise God because my mom made it here to visit from Chile, and she's safely here. She's going to stay with us for 3 weeks, and I just ask that you pray that everything goes well these 3 weeks that she's visiting. Thank you.
Hi, church. My name is Catherine, and a few weeks ago I had asked for prayer for an oral surgeon that used to practice in Reston. He has stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and it's inoperable. He did start chemotherapy, and I just want to ask that we continue to pray for him and his wife and his family, because he's having like a hard time, like a lot of pain, like waking up at nighttime, kind of like nightmares and stuff. But he did have one day that was like a good day for the first time in a while. Like he had like a good day, basically, like he was kind of back to himself. So we're just like want to see if everyone can continue to pray for him and for healing.
Good morning, my name is Russ, and I just wish we would all remember the people in Texas. That hurricane came aboard as came ashore as a category 4. And I've been on that coast, and it's not very hilly, it's very flat. Please, let's remember to pray for all those people in Texas.
Good morning, church. Well, I've got some praises this morning. First, I want to just read the first stanza of this beautiful hymn. O day of rest and gladness, O day of joy and light, O band of care and sadness, most beautiful, most bright. On thee, the high and the lowly, who bend before the throne, sing holy, 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 to thee, eternal one. That's one phrase. Another is that my son and his family went to Italy on vacation, and the Lord brought them back safely. This morning I heard the most years of joy in on my cheeks, and I'm so happy. Thank you, Lord. You're a good God, faithful. And
morning, church. This is Georgie. I want you to continue praying for Bernie and Debbie Rabidou. I'll give you an update on Bernie. He feels like he does not have much longer to live, and he does not want visitors. So please continue to pray for them.
I just wanted to praise God for us and to many others. The Lord gave her many talents. I'm sure she doesn't take credit for them. But she's a crackerjack operating room nurse. She's a super mom. She's flexible and adaptable when anything goes wrong, something. And she's handy. When we get out those metal poles for the boots for BBS, and I just look at that pile and I think, God help us. And she says, well, this goes here, that goes there, and it's just a wonderful thing. I wanted to mention two things in particular. She is so good to Bill and me. After a long day in the operating room, she will stop by the house and share her day and let us share our day when she could just go home. And it's like the Oriental people, you hardly dare say you want something because the next minute it will appear. So she's just generous to a fault. I know many people in this congregation have received blessings through her, knowingly or unknowingly. And so I just want to thank God for our daughter. And I ask your prayers for her and her husband and her daughter who's just starting at SBA, that He will bless the family.
And first of all, I'd like to thank God for breath of life and for being with me through difficult times. The beginning of this year wasn't very easy to me. Went through surgery and a whole bunch of things. And right now I think I'm getting my life back. I also decided to go back to school, so life has been busy and crazy lately. So I'd like you to pray for me and she already did some chemo and radiation, but this week she found out the cancer is back. So now she has 3 tumors, and 1 in her lungs and 2 in the pelvic area. So, but we know that God is powerful, He can do anything. So let's just be close to God and pray every day. He's coming soon.
Morning, church. I want you to lift up the Sargent family. My Aunt Myra lost her 9-year battle with ovarian cancer this week, so they're having to
time where we go up and kneel if you like at the front here, or just kneel where you're sitting right now. Alright. So we'll go ahead and do the prayer. Beautiful, it's sunny outside. It's not really that hot right now, so I think we all appreciate, some nice weather maybe now and then. I want to thank you again, Lord, for the opportunity for all of us to come here and have a sanctuary where we go ahead and worship you, and just sing praises, and just kind of experience you together as a family. Lord, a lot of us right now have a lot of praises. A lot of good things are happening through our lives here, and I want to thank you for that. It's hard to have a rough day, but it's very good to have one of those good days where we know wow, God is here with me. So I really appreciate that you give these people some of these good days. But Lord, some of us here are also going through some bad days. It's rough times. A lot of people, with sickness, with cancer, or a lot of people getting hurt. Just look around the world. There's so much suffering, and it seems like some of us are helpless. We can't do anything. And I just want to pray, Lord, that we can see you just work in the lives of people who are hurting most, and the people who are hurting everywhere. Help us to understand that you have a timeline, Lord, and we may not understand that timeline that you have, but I pray that you can give us faith, just a small amount of faith. You say can move mountains, and I just pray that we can have that faith. And for those of us who doesn't have that faith, that we can just come and bow before you at the feet of the cross, where we can just take that moment of silence and understand
that we may not understand everything, but that if we can have that little bit of faith, a little bit of faith to trust in you, trust the timeline that you have, the big picture that you are working in. Help us to understand that. And help us to have that family of people who can help us understand that, and be with us in those times that we are struggling. I also like to, just thank for the families that we do have here. This church family is a great big family, and we're all loving, caring, and I just pray that you continue to, bring that into this church, that we all can come closer together as these times, are near the end. I just pray that we can just get closer, not only to all of us, but closer to you, Lord, because in the end, things will get tough, and I just pray that you can be there with us, and that we can be there for each other. Now I'm going to take a few moments of silence for the silent prayer requests that the people have here. We love you, Lord, and can't wait to see you soon. Let's ask the Lord in Jesus' name. Amen.
Good morning. Morning. It's good to be here again. It seems like I wasn't here. I was just here a few weeks ago. I got to be careful. This might start to feel like home or something. Heavenly Father, in the quietness of this moment, simply ask that you to speak, and we will hear. This is my prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. So are you living the life you dreamed? Is everything just working out the way you planned for it to work out? You know, it seems that life rarely works the way we planned and hoped. And there are times when life appears to spin out of control. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? You know? Do you sometimes feel like you're an exile living in a strange land, you see? You know, maybe that job hasn't worked out the way that you thought it would, or school's not working the way you thought it would, and life is just not working. Have you ever felt far from the person you hoped that you would be. You know what I'm talking about? You see, in life, if something is old, we want something new. Hear me? Or when we're young, we want to be older. But when we're older, what happens? We want to be younger. You know, if we live in an apartment, we want a condo. And if we live in a condo, we want a townhouse. And if we live in a townhouse, we want one of those big single-family homes. And if you have a job, you want a better job. Or you want a better boss. Or you want more vacation time. If we're single, we want to be married. And the list goes on and on and on, because life rarely goes the way we hoped and planned. So what do when you don't like the circumstances of your life? What do you do when it seems as if those circumstances of your life aren't going to change any time soon? Have you ever felt like that? Like you want the circumstances of life to change, but it appears as if you're trapped in this spiraling cycle, and things aren't getting better, things aren't getting different. So let me give you some biblical context for some people who were stuck in a downward spiral. The kingdom of Judah had been invaded by Nebuchadnezzar, the king or emperor of Babylon. And the capital city, Jerusalem, had been captured. And more than captured, eventually its walls were razed or torn down, and the temple was completely destroyed. And even worse than that, the people that lived there were forcibly removed. Can you imagine that? Someone coming in and just moving the entire population of where you live to somewhere else. They were marched some 500 miles across the desert and resettled by the banks of the river Cheddar, in a land that was completely foreign to them. We can read this Bible verse from Psalm 137, verses 1 through 4. Psalm 137, 1 through 4. By the rivers of Babylon we sat and wept when we remembered Zion. There on the poplars we hung our harps, for there our captors asked us for songs. Our tormentors demanded songs of joy. They said, "Sing us one of the songs of Zion." How can we sing the songs of the Lord while in a foreign land? And, you know, I read these Bible verses, and I just try to imagine what that would be like to be in a strange and foreign land, removed there, and the people that are my captors, are tormenting me, and they're saying, "Hey, sing a happy song." Have you ever had that sort of experience in life? You know, I know as a kid, I might be upset about something, and mom or dad would say, you better dry up those tears now. And I remember what that felt like, because I didn't want to dry up those tears. I wanted to cry. I wanted to complain. And they're being told to dry up the tears, and more than that, to sing happy songs. But their problem went deeper than that. Because even in their community, the community of the captors, these Hebrew people, there was conflict between those who attempted to calm their fears and their anger at their plight by predicting an early end to their captivity. And then there was a guy like the prophet Jeremiah who said this in Jeremiah 29, 8 and 9. Jeremiah said this, Jeremiah 29, 8 and 9. "This is what the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel, says. Do not let the prophets and diviners among you deceive you. Do not listen to the dreams you encourage them to have. They are prophesying lies to you in my name. I have not sent them, declares the Lord. So there are these people there among the captives, false prophets who are saying, you're going home soon. This captivity is not going to last long. Things are going to get better really quickly, really soon. And Jeremiah sends a message and says, don't listen to them. Really cool thing about God. Into the mess of human life, God always seems to step. And so into the mess that these Hebrews are facing, God sends a letter from the prophet Jeremiah. Jeremiah 29. Next slide. I never have good luck here, do I? Okay. Jeremiah 29, verses 4 through 7. This is what the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel, says to all those I carried into exile from Jerusalem to Babylon. Build houses and settle down. Plant gardens and eat what they produce. Marry and have sons and daughters. Find wives for your sons and give your daughters in marriage so that you too may have sons and daughters. Increase in number there. Do not decrease. Also seek the peace and prosperity of the city to which I have carried you into exile. Pray to the Lord for it, because if it prospers, you too will prosper. And so, I read this, and what I see is the prophet's not saying you're going to get rescued. You see, and so often as Christians, as Seventh-day Adventists, we look at this world as some place where God is going to rescue us from, and we look at it, and we look to the second coming as the big, what's the word I'm looking for, escape hatch, or, get out of jail free card or whatever. But the message to these folks in exile was settle down for the long haul. Build a house. Start a garden. Get wives for your sons and husbands for your daughters. You're not going anywhere for a while. I read these Bible verses and started thinking on them and praying on them. This is pertinent for us today. Because you see, we think of ourselves as exiles, as sojourners, as travelers. We're waiting for a city whose builder and maker is God. And we think and we dream and we pray for rescue. It's part of our DNA as Seventh-day Adventist Christians. It's pertinent for us today if our lives are not the lives that we imagined. This has meaning. If our children aren't turning out to be the way we hoped, if the life we do is not the life that we planned and dreamed, this has resonance. It's pertinent if you wonder, how can I sing the Lord's song where I live? Have you ever felt like that? You see, how can I lift up my voice in praise to God with all the stuff that I face every day in my life? But I wonder if God is saying to you, build houses, settle down, plant gardens, eat the fruit of it, find wives for your sons and husbands for your daughters, settle in for the long haul. But that's not the heart or core of this message from God to these captives. The heart and core is the seventh verse. Seek the peace and prosperity of the city to which I've carried you into exile. Pray to the Lord for it, because if it prospers, you too will prosper. So, I read the 7th verse of Jeremiah 29. And the first question that came into my mind was, God, are you insane? Are you nuts? Are you crazy? Seek the peace and prosperity of my captors? Seek the peace and prosperity of people like neo-Nazis and white supremacists and my neighbor who gets on my nerves and my boss who sometimes I just feel like hating? Seek their peace and prosperity? Seek the peace and prosperity of that brother or sister in church who I know somehow I gotta love, but in all honesty, God, I just don't even like them. Seek their peace and prosperity. God, are you insane? Are you crazy? The title of the message today is Life Reimagined. And you see, somehow in the midst of a life that may not be the life I planned or dreamed, in the midst of promises that are unfulfilled, in the midst of hopes that are shattered, in the midst of feeling like an exile, even from myself, in the middle of all of that, somehow I have to reimagine life. I have to ask myself the question, God, where are you in the middle of all of this thing that is called my life? Where are you? Jeremiah 24, starting at the 6th verse. My eyes will watch over them for their good, and I will bring them back to this land. I will build them up and not tear them down. I will plant them and not uproot them. I will give them a heart to know me, that I am the Lord. They will be my people, and I will be their God, for they will return to me with all their heart. That's what God says. He says, in the middle of all that, I am there. I am with you. I am drawing you to myself. That's what God says. Where is God when it all goes wrong? He's right there. You see, that's the message of Scripture. I will never leave you. I will never forsake you. And so I know that when you ask that question, where are you, God? When you ask that question, you will discover that God is right there with you. That he is good, that he is faithful, that he knows what's best, that he is quick to forgive, that his mercy endures forever, that he has a purpose, that he loves you with a love that will never end, a love that will never let you go. I know that you will discover that the Holy Spirit dwells in you and is with you in the middle of whatever those circumstances are. But when you've asked that question, God, where are you? And when you discover that even in exile, God is still with you, with hopes that are crushed and dreams that are shattered, that God is still present, then comes the next step. The hard thing, the difficult thing, to pray for the peace and the prosperity of the place of your exile. The place of your exile could be where you work, where you go to school. The place of your exile could even be your marriage. It could even be there. It could be your home. And the hard thing is to pray for the peace and prosperity of the place of your exile. The place where you're held captive by a tyrannical and oppressive regime. To pray for the peace of that place. For the Hebrews in Babylonia, their captors were oppressive. Their captors were hostile. They were full of insulting remarks and degrading glances and sauntering postures. That's the kind of folks they were. Because when you win, what do to the people you beat? You press them down and you push on them and you degrade them and you do everything that you can to hurt them. Theologian Walter Brueggemann said this: "It is a shocking decree. The slavers were commanded to pray for their captors, to seek the welfare of this foreign city, to invest in real estate and engage in commerce in a land wholly unfamiliar and hostile toward them. It is unfathomable to think about life as the enslaved cheering for my enslaver. If God commanded Israel to invest in the welfare of their captive city, it makes me wonder how much he desires for us to love, cherish, and invest in our neighborhoods and cities which are far from hostile." Life reimagined. Your life reimagined. Comes through prayer. Through praying for the place where you are in life right now. For praying for those folks. For praying, it comes through praying for your captors. For your tormentors. And so there are different ways that we can live life under these circumstances. We can bury our heads in the sand, we can rush out to work or rush out when necessity demands it, go to work, go to church, buy some food, go home again and ignore the world around us. One option. Second option, we can adapt to the culture around us. Be a Christian with Christians and like everyone else when we're with them. In other words, we can just work to fit in. Third option. The hard one. The tough. Seek the peace and prosperity of the city to which I have carried you into exile. Pray to the Lord for it, because if it prospers, you too will prosper. So this word, translated peace or welfare in some translations, 3 times in this verse in Jeremiah 29, is the Hebrew word shalom. And usually when we think of peace, what do we think of? We just think of the absence of conflict, right? That's a peace for us is when there's no war. But in Hebrew thought, peace was far more than that. It was internal peace, because everything is complete and well. It applies to our relationships on the job and in the classroom. It applies to our relationship with God's creation. It's a holistic kind of peace. It's a peace that permeates every aspect of our lives and being. And that is what the prophet Jeremiah is telling them to pray for. More than just the absence of war, but a positive presence. A peace that permeates every aspect of life. This word shalom is used throughout Scripture to describe the absolute joy, flourishing fulfillment, and bliss that is found in the presence of a holy God. It conveys the idea of interdependent relationships that God's people are to share with Him, each other, and all creation. Someone wrote this. They said to have shalom is to be whole and healthy in yourself and in all that challenges you, be it people, the issues of your world, your environment, your society, or the problems which are at hand, the problems which await you. So, that's the challenge. To seek the welfare, the peace of the place that your life inhabits right now. to work for its transformation. The challenge is to see God in all that we are and do, so that God's kingdom is not something we're waiting for, but something that is present now and we're a part of. That's the challenge. That is your challenge. That is how life is reimagined, your life. We have to promote reconciled relationships with the people around us, the people we work with, our neighbors, the people we live with, even the people we worship with. And we have to work to restore people to a full expression of what it means to be human. Because you see, to be human is to be made in God's image. On the back of your bulletin, it says thoughts to ponder. And this is what I want you to take away with you today. As you pray for the peace of your community, even in the midst of your exile, and your shattered dreams and hopes. First thing I want you to think about, are there areas of my life that I have not turned over to His Lordship? If so, what are they? You should think about this now, this afternoon. Write it down in a private place. And then answer the question, am I ready to turn these things over to God today? Second thing, who do I need to be reconciled with today, this week? And can you say to God that I will choose one person and work for reconciliation with them before next Sabbath? 3, what is one thing I can do this week to demonstrate to someone that they're fully human, made in God's image, and cared for by Him and me? And then go and do that thing. These are your marching orders. That's what I want to send you out to do. Because if you pray for the peace and prosperity, a place where you live life right now, God won't disappoint you, and your life will be reimagined, and you will discover amazing blessings, and you will become a blessing.
So God changes whatever we had with work into beautiful dance. So it's an easy song to sing, and so we hope you can join us. Please stand up.
And also it's a pastor's selection.
And I like the lyrics. I really, Pastor, thank you so much for this song, because I feel in my personal life with my daughter's experience, He's changing my mourning into dancing. So thank you so much.
Sing
One quick announcement this morning. For those that may be visiting this morning, we do have a visitor's lunch for you. The Spanish Sabbath School class is going to offer that. And also, if you're a visitor, there's a gift for you out in the information window. Thank you.
Father, thank you for this time that we have shared with each other and with you. As we leave here and go out and experience the world where you have placed us, help us, Lord. Give us the strength and the courage and the heart to pray for our place of captivity. This is our prayer in Jesus' name.